Broly, the legendary Super Saiyan, one of the most iconic, recognizable, and divisive characters in the entire Dragon Ball franchise. From Dragon Ball Z to Dragon Ball Super, from video games to movies, Broly's popularity and legacy spans decades, and at this point is undeniable. But despite all of his popularity and pedigree within the Dragon Ball space, I often find that Broly is one of the most misunderstood characters in the entire franchise. And to be honest, I don't blame anyone for misunderstanding him. Decades of misinterpretation, inconsistent writing, and a tendency towards surface level analysis have transformed what could have been one of Dragon Ball's most emotionally complex and layered characters into a seemingly one-note, simple-minded rage monster. To me, this is an absolute disservice to a character with so much narrative potential, and that is truly a tragedy. Over the years, there's been one phrase that always comes up when you mention Broly. He hates Goku because he cried too much as a baby. Simple, clean, digestible. However, it's this kind of reductionism that I find to often be the problem when discussing anything in relation to Broly. It's emblematic of how we as people flatten complex individuals into one-dimensional caricatures because simplicity is easy. We categorize them, label them, box them in. We turn people into archetypes because it's too much work to accept that everyone is multifaceted. And for Broly, he got put into the mindless rage machine box. Look, I get it. Broly hating Goku because he made him cry as a baby is funny. The memes and jokes about this being his motivation are endless. However, this surface level explanation does Broly a huge disservice. Because the truth is, Broly doesn't hate Goku because he cried as a baby. What we're really seeing is pain and trauma going unchecked. Broly's story begins with betrayal and brutality. Born with power far beyond that of any other Saiyan infant, power that eclipses that of most Saiyan elites. Broly should have been celebrated as a prodigy, a being born to elevate the Saiyan race to heights never seen before. Instead, he was condemned. Fearing Broly's potential, King Vegeta attempted to have him executed in secret, his men stabbing the newborn in a vain attempt to end his life and discarding the newborn alongside his father, Paragus. Left for dead on a planet marked for annihilation at the hands of Frieza. A child punished for being exceptional. A life that begins not with love, but with betrayal, fear, and pain. That was Broly's welcoming to this universe. Broly's earliest lessons in this life weren't about honor or growth. They were about survival, about suppression, about control. A volatile power raised by a father who feared him as much as he tried to use him. No love, no nurture, no protection, just pain, just power. And so, he grew up broken. That level of trauma at such a young age, it warps the mind, it scars the soul. So when Broly fixates on Goku, Kakarot, it's not over a childhood grudge. It's not about a baby's cry. It's about pain. Deep, scarring, unresolved pain. He needs someone to blame for the pain he went through, the torment he suffered, the violence he endured. And Goku, the smiling, confident, battle-hardened warrior, becomes the perfect scapegoat. A survivor from the past, a face linked from a time of pain. Even if subconsciously, he becomes a symbol of everything Broly has gone through. The anger, the trauma, the pain. It all gets projected onto this one person. Goku is the final thread for Broly's broken past, and now that thread has come back into his life, becoming the target of his unyielding rage. Because trauma doesn't need a reason, it needs a target. Goku triggers something in Broly that no one else does. It's not about history, it's about instinct. Saiyans are born to fight, to conquer, to evolve through battle. And Broly, already warped by pain, feels an uncontrollable pull towards Goku. From his power to his confidence, his strength, it lights a fire in Broly that he cannot control. A fire so overwhelming that it even overrides his father's control device. The trauma mixed with the Saiyan's natural desire to compete, to fight. Goku is a natural trigger for Broly, from their shared history all the way down to their Saiyan biology itself. And when Broly transforms into the legendary Super Saiyan, it's not just power, it's pain made flesh. It's trauma manifesting into raw, unchecked rage. The transformation acts almost like armor, a coping mechanism, a primal, unstoppable force that's less of a transformation and more of a defense mechanism built in to protect him from feeling such pain ever again. A shield forged in trauma, where the only language left is violence. Underneath that towering figure, the pupilless eyes, the monstrous strength, the uncontrollable rage, is a being molded and defined by pain. And when your soul has been forged in torment, the only thing left to express is destruction. But here's where things get frustrating. All that emotional potential, all that narrative depth, thrown out the window come Broly's second coming. Instead, we get a parody of what Broly once was. Now he's chasing children and screaming out Kakarot again. Suddenly, Broly is a mindless brute, a plot device, a monster who wakes up and immediately starts trying to kill everyone because, get this, Goten kinda looks like Goku, cries like a baby. And just like that, the joke became the narrative. This one film reduced Broly into a punchline. Suddenly, he's just this hulking brute who goes on a murderous rampage, all because of a little boy who cried a little too much. It all started here. Everything we've come to know about Broly's character and personality is defined by this one movie. Gone is the trauma. Gone is the nuance. All that remains is this parody of what once was Broly, an imposter put in his place parading himself as the original. And then, it got worse. In comes Bio Broly, a literal clone, a ghoul monster that barely speaks, a copy of a copy, so far removed from the original that he's not even recognizable anymore. Year after year, movie after movie, video game after video game. This caricature, this fraud, got beaten into the memory of the Dragon Ball audience. So much so that after years of this repeated false narrative, most people don't even recognize the original Broly anymore. All that remains is the copy. And to an entire generation of fans, that was Broly. Not the tragedy, not the trauma, and most certainly not the pain. Just a monster, a hollow echo of the nuanced figure he once was. But despite everything, Broly never went away. Broly never truly disappeared. If anything, he slowly became more and more popular over time. But why? The simple answer is, Broly became this almost mythical figure within Dragon Ball. In his original incarnation, Broly was portrayed not just as powerful, but legendary. When speaking about Broly, he is presented as the legendary Super Saiyan, a once-in-a-millennium level warrior whose power dwarfs all others. His very existence was treated as a prophecy. His form, glowing with green aura and unrelenting fury, became instantly iconic. This mythic framing gave Broly an almost godlike presence in the series, a literal god of destruction before the concept ever existed. Even as a non-canon character, that is all that was needed for him to stay in the conversation of the Dragon Ball world. And then fan culture did the rest. In the early 2000s, he became a major topic of discussion among anime forums and YouTube videos. More specifically, AMVs portraying Broly as this ultimate form of power and making him look, in a word, really cool. His exaggerated strength and wild personality made him ripe for parody, but also admiration. Phrases like Broly is the strongest and fan-made power level discussions kept him at the forefront of Dragon Ball discourse for years. Moreover, his over-the-top nature resonated with fans who enjoyed spectacle. Broly represents Dragon Ball in its purest form, a being who screams louder, fights harder, and breaks more planets than anyone else. Over time, the exaggeration became the appeal, with Broly becoming a legend in both the universe and fandom alike. Broly's popularity is not accidental. It is a result of a perfect storm of design, mythology, fan culture, and overall presentation. He may not be as well known for his emotional depth and character writing, but his overall appeal makes him a constant mainstay in the Dragon Ball fandom and the minds of the audience. In 2018, Dragon Ball Super Broly arrived on the scene and gave us something new, or maybe something old. In the movie, Broly this time was written by Akira Toriyama himself, with him bringing Broly into the official canon and redefined him for a new generation. This version of Broly is socially awkward, emotionally stunted, and highly sympathetic. Unlike the clone spoken of earlier, this incarnation has depth, a tragic victim of parental abuse and isolation, making his violent outbursts understandable rather than merely terrifying. His gentle nature when not provoked creates a stark contrast with the monster he becomes in battle, echoing themes of duality and inner turmoil. His internal struggle between pacifism and his inherited, uncontrollable rage speaks to broader psychological and emotional themes, eerily reminiscent of the original Broly, only with a much different presentation. In many ways, this Broly is closer to the original than the sequels ever were. They may have changed some things around, but one thing that they kept in common is the emotional trauma that Broly suffers. Although the original Broly is all but lost to time at this point, the original essence of his character remains in this new incarnation. Broly isn't just a misunderstood character, he's a mishandled one. Over the years, the loudest, most extreme parts of his character were amplified, while everything else was forgotten. The trauma ignored, the emotional depth lost. But if you look beyond the screens, beyond the destruction, you'll see a character worth understanding. Not because he's the strongest and not because he's the angriest, but because Broly is a tragic, layered, and emotionally nuanced character. If you look beyond the surface, what you'll find is a boy who was betrayed, a man who was used, and a soul who never got the chance to heal. A symbol of trauma and pain that when left unchecked and ignored leads to destruction. Pain begets pain, and it's such a tragedy that this once nuanced giant is all but forgotten and lost to time. But hey, these are just my thoughts on the topic. Do you agree with my general assessment, or do you think I'm just completely wrong? Please feel free and let me know. And if you do me a huge favor, please like and subscribe to the video. It really helps the video to get out there and it really helps people to see it. But more than anything, thank you for your time. Dragon Ball is one of my favorite franchises in the entire world, and Broly is one of my favorite characters to ever come out from that world. I truly do believe that there's a lot of nuance and intrigue to Broly's character. However, not a lot of people see that. The goal of this video? Hopefully bring it into the limelight. That's really it. And hey, we've got a lot more videos that are coming in the future, and I hope you're really looking forward to those. But in the meantime, feel free to go back and watch some of my old ones. I really think you'd enjoy them. But for now, I've been Casual Wandle. I hope you were entertained. I hope you enjoyed your stay. And until next time, it's bye-bye for now.